Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. When Karen mistook me for staff while visiting my dad. My dad was skewered at a construction site by a large steel rod last week. I believe it's called rebar, but I could be wrong. He went to the hospital to have it removed and some surgery to repair damage to his internal organs. The next day, my husband and I drove to our hometown about 30 to 40 minutes away to see him after the surgery. My husband dropped me off at the hospital while he went to my parents' house to feed and walk their dogs and to let the neighbor know what had happened and why my parents wouldn't be home for a while. While visiting my dad, he said that he was thirsty. The IV drip that gave him liquids wasn't enough. The ice chips they gave him wasn't enough, so he wanted something stronger. So I left him to go to the nurse's station to see what he was allowed to have. My dad wanted a beer, but I was pretty sure they couldn't get him one in the hospital. So I went to the nurse's station and asked what he was allowed to have. They checked the patient notes and said he could have mild juice like apple, and that was about it besides water. I said thanks and walked down to the vending machine to get him an apple juice when this lady stuck a bunch of papers in my face and asked how to fill them out. I said, I don't know, she could go to the nurse's station to ask that. She replied with, the line's too long at the station and I'm here right now, so do my job and help her. I again said, they can help you at the nurse's station and that I don't work here, I'm just visiting. Because it seems to be mentioned often here, I was wearing nothing like the hospital staff. I had on gold leggings, a college sweatshirt, and it was obvious I hadn't fixed my hair. It was tucked under a baseball cap. The lady said, why won't you help me? Who's your supervisor? Stuff like that. While I kept insisting I was just a visitor and left to go bring my dad his juice. I'd been in my dad's room maybe 10 seconds when this lady burst in with her paperwork demanding I help her fill it out. My mom was frozen in shock at this lady while my dad was frantically pushing his call button to get help down here. I kept trying to dismiss this lady when an actual nurse came in the room thinking there was an emergency based on how often my dad was pushing his call button. The nurse said, what's the problem? And my dad said, this lady is bothering me and my daughter. The nurse calmly looked at the lady and said she'd be more than glad to help her at the nurse's station if she could please leave the patient and his family alone. As the nurse and the lady left, I couldn't help but mutter under my breath, I told you they could help you at the nurse's station, followed by some colorful language. Dad went home yesterday and seems to be in good shape, though Mom says he's kind of bored not being able to do any work around the house, like the lawn. He's supposed to stay in bed, and he has a very restricted diet. My older sister's flight gets in tomorrow morning, and then we're driving back to see him tomorrow after I pick her up at the airport. Wow, that entitled woman takes the cake. Who barges into someone's hospital room like that? Wearing gold leggings and a baseball cap hardly screams medical professional. I have to credit you for holding it together as well as you did. I'm not sure I could have stayed so calm in your shoes. And our second story. Grocery store tale of rage and redemption. This tale happened to me about 10 years ago. I was working for a large retail company at the time as a cashier. I was about halfway through my shift when a middle-aged woman and an older woman, most likely her mother, came to my checkout lane. This woman had two large grocery carts full of stuff, mostly food. As I started ringing out the items from the first cart, I could tell by the way she was talking to her mother that she was kind of grumpy. I figured I should relieve the tension and say something, so I went on with the regular greetings, hello, how are you, etc. She starts her response and seemed more cheerful, and then her attitude turned really sour fast as I started ringing up the Lunchables she threw up on the belt. I'd rung up maybe 3, and she says, you need to change the price. This is supposed to be $1. They were ringing up at $1.25. I would have changed the price, no problem, for 1 or 2 of them. However, she had 27. We counted all of them on the belt, and that was more than what I was authorized to change the price of. You can usually do a price adjustment if the total's under $1 without a manager having to be present. So I said to her that I would have to get my supervisor to do the change. This did not make her happy. She's now raising her voice and says, they're $1, change the price. Here's a picture of the sign over by them for proof. At this point, she shows me a picture of just the $1 part of the sign. I can't see anything else in the picture. Usually on one of the signs, there's an expiration date for certain prices, and there's always a label telling you what the product is. So not really knowing if it was for the Lunchables or not, I say, When my manager gets here, she'll be happy to help adjust to the right price. Now, my manager was the only one on and was watching a couple additional departments, so she just happened to be on the other side of the store when I sent her a request through the register for assistance. Knowing it was going to be a moment, I avoided out the Lunchables entirely and was starting on other things on the belt when she said, "Stop! I don't want you to ring anything up until your manager comes here and fixes this." I'm thinking, okay, just waste my time and yours, but whatever, because I get paid hourly anyway. So I said, "My manager will be here shortly. Can I help you unload your cart while we wait?" I thought it was a nice offer, but she wasn't having any of it and was clearly pissed off by her sharp "no" response. So about another minute goes by of the most awkward silence and trying not to make eye contact when my manager finally shows up. My manager, also a she, but we'll refer to as manager, not to make it confusing, says the usual, "Hello, I'm the manager. How can I help?" phase. And then the customer, who I'll refer to as she from here on out, replied, "She," meaning me, "won't change the price of these. They're $1 and I want them at that price. See?" She shoves the phone in my manager's face and seeing what I saw, and knowing I did the correct thing by calling her, my manager, to make a large price adjustment, says, "I see that they are $1, however, I can't see the label on this picture. If you don't mind waiting another moment, I just have to run and check the price tag on the shelf for verification." At this, she walks away really quickly because my manager can also sense how angry this woman is. The woman, after the manager is out of earshot and no longer visible, pulls a label from our shelf out of her back pocket and shoved her hand in my face saying, "See, this is $1, change the price." I inspect the label and notice it's an old one. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later at this point, and say, "Thank you, but this is an expired price tag. As long as the price is still the same on the shelf, my manager would be happy to change the price for us when she gets back." This is when the woman realized she screwed up. She gets very upset and turns bright red and starts screaming, "Just change the price now." And I to say, "We will adjust them accordingly in just a moment when my manager gets back." This was unsatisfactory to her because she screams again, "Tell the manager to hurry the F up. You all are effing useless." I've been growing more grumpy the longer I've been exposed to this woman, so I say, trying to get her attention, "Ma'am, we are trying," and cutting me off mid-sentence, she leans over the register and tries to hit me in the face. Luckily, I have very quick reflexes, so I manage to dodge it. At this point, I'm crying. My manager was walking up behind the woman and saw everything that just happened. I was standing there shocked as my manager had grabbed the new label off the shelf and was explaining to her what the price would be and that the current price they were ringing up was accurate. The woman, defeated but still angry, says, "Hurry up and finish this then." She was motioning to me to finish ringing up her groceries. I, remembering from my training, decided to do the only thing I could to keep myself away from this woman. "No, I will not. She tried to hit me." At this point, I'm crying and just walked away. I hear her angrily talking to her mother from around the corner where I sat until my manager finished ringing her up. My manager came to check on me and said it was all on tape and to go to the security guy and pull the footage so we could keep her from coming back in our store. I went and chatted with him for a few minutes until I calmed down, and while we were finding the footage, we discovered that this woman was on a watch list for stores in our area anyway. I wasn't the only cashier she'd been aggressive with, nor was this the first time she'd tried to pull off the price change stunt. I never saw her again. There are way too many people just like this bee. I really think your manager should have refused her service the moment you said she tried to hit you. Security should have been called immediately. And our last story. How to stop an HOA takeover without breaking a sweat. My property, built in the mid-90s, sits on a smaller development of 30 homes. We've always enjoyed the peace and privacy of our neighborhood, which backs onto a beautiful state forest. There's no public access to the forest from our side, but a small path cuts across my elderly neighbor's property, which the nearby HOA has been using for years as their unofficial private trail. I bought my house in 2019, blissfully HOA-free. My neighbors and I cherish the independence of our community, unlike the HOA-controlled neighborhood built in the early 2000s. That newer development with 105 homes came with the standard HOA nonsense, micromanagement, endless fees, and a sense of entitlement that didn't stay within their boundaries. Last year, things took a turn. Out of nowhere, my neighbors and I received welcome to the HOA packets in our mailboxes. At first, I thought it was a joke. But no, the HOA actually believed they could annex our neighborhood into their little dictatorship. When I called the HOA office to clarify, the smug lady on the line insisted, "Yes, you're in our HOA now. It's all been decided." Decided by who exactly? Certainly not by me or my neighbors. I spoke to everyone on our street, and it was unanimous. No one was having it. The HOA started sending threatening letters demanding dues and compliance with their rules. That's when they made their first big mistake, messing with my next-door neighbor, a top-tier real estate attorney with decades of experience. Let's just say their legal scare tactics didn't hold up for long. With a few strongly worded letters from my neighbor, the HOA quickly backed off their claims. No lawsuits were filed because they didn't have a leg to stand on. Our properties were never part of their jurisdiction, and they couldn't just strong-arm us into joining their club. But the story doesn't end there. My elderly neighbor, whose garden the HOA had been using as their forest access point, had had enough. His son decided to take matters into his own hands and hired a company to build a massive, impenetrable fence across the path. The message was clear. No more free rides. When the HOA found out, they went ballistic. They sent letters, they made phone calls, they even tried to rally the town against us. But when it came time to back up their tantrums with legal action, they quietly slinked away. It turns out the path was 100% on private property, and they had zero claim to it. Now to access the forest trails, the HOA residents have to drive 3 miles to the public entrance like everyone else. No more convenient backyard strolls for them. The word around town is that the HOA residents are furious, and here's the kicker, property prices in the neighborhood have taken a nosedive. Apparently, the easy forest access was a major selling point, and now it's gone. When I asked my elderly neighbor's son about the fence, he simply smiled and said, "Children need to learn life lessons," and boy, did they learn. You don't mess with people's property, and you certainly don't try to expand your HOA empire where it doesn't belong. Now my neighbors and I can enjoy our community without their entitled nonsense. Meanwhile, the HOA is stuck with angry residents, plummeting property values, and no one else to blame but themselves. Not really a new thing. People use every sort of nonsense to make their homes more valuable. My home's worth $50K more because neighbors have big apple tree in front yard type of thing. In this case, home values were overinflated because of access to the forest. Without access, prices went more towards real values. I wonder if HOA can legally claim easement of passage because of years of usage. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.